Welcome back to Off Guard. It's your host, Austin Rivers, along with my guy, Pausha Hagigi. We are back. It's May 15th. Fresh after some closeout games. I think we all called a couple of them. Maybe a couple surprises as well, as we'll get right into it. Pasha, how are we doing today, man?
Good. I got a couple of comments, a couple of DMs about you. I don't know if you remember last pod. You were like, I'll bet anybody the Celtics. You were very confident about the Celtics coming back in this series. And I understand the Jayson Tatum aspect of it. Do you want to actually just talk about that injury? Because we haven't got to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, first off, our hearts, go out to the Tatum family, as obviously Jayson, tore his Achilles. That is, for whatever reason, an injury that's happening more. This has to be something that has to be studied more. I think it's just sports science. I'm sure it already is. Why this injury is reoccurring now more than it ever has in the past, I don't know. It's a very scary, severe injury, as we all know, and it puts a player out pretty much for like a year and a half. So he's probably going to miss entirety of next season, which is a huge blow to the Celtics when you talk about their runway here. It'd be like LeBron or any of these primetime players in the middle of their prime going down with this severe of an injury. It's one thing KD had it. At least KD was already won a ring and MVPs and kind of done his dance, and he recovered just fine. But some guys don't. And, KD was able to recover also. I'd probably just due to how light he is, how light his body is, how skinny his frame is. There's not a lot of weight going on that Achilles. Paul George is another guy. He didn't tear his Achilles, but, broke his leg in half. These are guys I'm sure he'll turn to and get advice from on how to not only come back, but trust yourself again. So, we're definitely going to send some prayers out to JT, man. Just a devastating blow, not only to him, but to the Celtics franchise for at least another year and a half.
Well, for a franchise that's obviously had so much success over the years, it's hard to feel bad for a franchise, right, like that. But I couldn't imagine, winning the title, having this team, re-signing everybody, thinking we're going to probably win the next 3 out of 4 or 5 championships here. Thinking that in one night, it all just kind of, it just changes everything. They're probably going to have to shed some contracts. That's already been announced, right? Maybe KP or Drew or something. Next year's a wash. And then Tatum, like you said, like you alluded to, just when he comes back in 2026, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for him to get back going too. And it just sucks to lose a year or two off your prime.
Yep.
I thought of, Tom Brady, I remember tore his ACL one year, lost a year of his prime, but came back, and ACL is obviously not as severe, but yeah, it just sucks that a guy that's always actually played, Jayson Tatum never really missed time.
Yeah. And the injury was non-contact, and he didn't really do anything. He just ran for the ball. It's just a freaky injury, man. It's just happening. Guys will just like make a quick movement, sudden movement, like they do every single day, like they do every single play, and like it just tears. Again, we got to start doing some like preventive stuff with some of these players, especially the guys who have heavy minutes on their bodies. Like Jalen Brunson, the Tatums, Jalen Browns, Halliburtons, whatever the case may be, right? These guys logging 30, 35 minutes a night throughout the playoffs. Anthony Edwards had a funny injury the other day, and he was grabbing his calf. He was worried about it. Like there has to be some type of sports science here, something that we can do to prevent some of these guys from continually doing this. Because this injury, which never was a frequent one in the past, is now one. You could argue maybe the speed of the game, all these different things. I don't know.
I've heard some theories about players. Players are planting and doing Euro step, cutting, slide, like things that I guess players in the 70s, 80s just weren't doing.
Very true.
Another thing I thought about was, man, you know what? Like these playoffs are becoming a thing where just the healthiest team at the end of it ends up being good. And you think about everyone complaining about the 82-game season, right? And I was always against that because of records and things. Who's going to beat LeBron's scoring record if they go back to 60 games in a year and things like that? It's just not the same. But when you have a long season like that where players are logging minutes and are as athletic in the wear and tear on their bodies as it is, and then you go into the playoffs where it seems like all these injuries, Steph, everyone else just wears down, and the playoffs become whoever's just healthy, like the Pacers or OKC.
Yeah.
You think about that, that conversation of, is the season too long and shortening it again? I know obviously the financial aspect of that, it probably would never happen, but do you think that could be a thing that they look at?
Yeah. I mean, Adam has mentioned multiple times about the length of a season. And I think they've probably fiddled around with it a little bit in their heads, just in terms of maybe trying to fine tune it, maybe lose 10, playoffs, do you do best of 5? I've heard all different types of theories. But as of now, it is where it stands. It does feel like kind of what you said, Pausha. It does feel like whoever's just the healthiest kind of just goes.
That's why depth's so important, right? Like instead of having like Jimmy Butler for 60 million, I'd rather have 3 20 million guys. Because if someone goes down, you know what I mean? Like that, and we talk about the Pacers' depth and OKC's depth, and it just
that's
like
what scares me about New York. Quite frankly, they're playing all those guys 35 minutes a night. Everyone's healthy right now, so it works. If one of those 5 go down, their team changes. Just one. Obviously, Jalen Brunson goes down, you could pack the team up. But if you've got a couple of those guys that go down, even their role players, because they rely on all 5 of those guys so much, and I say 5, Josh Hart, Karl Towns, OG, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, okay? That's the New York Knicks right there. If you want to add one player, you can add a McBride and Mitchell. Those are 7. So 2 players. That's all he plays. Those are the only 7 guys that see the court. If one of them in that starting lineup go down, whole team is different. So obviously, God forbid, but yeah, it's just, the teams with the most depth have a little bit more leeway in terms of maybe a guy or 2 going down and the train being able to still roll.
I mean, like even the Pacers last year without Mathurin, they lose a guy like Mathurin, they still went to the conference finals because that's how deep they are.
Yeah, they have a deep team. And listen, Celtics, obviously, I don't believe we're going to win this series anymore. Without JT, I don't think they have a chance. But they beat the shit out of the Knicks last night.
Yeah.
And in some regards, their game is a little bit more simpler without JT. They don't have to have this balance of him and JB, and everyone has to find their thing. It's now just Jaylen Brown's the go-to guy. And he played fantastic last night, by the way. And you have a just handful of guys now who are just free. They're a little dangerous. Their record without JT is like 10-2. They're not a bad team. They're not a team you can just fuck around with and think you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
They still are a loaded team, 6-7 guys out there who could play. And in some ways, no, they're not better without Jayson Tatum. But for a few game stint, you have a multiple talented guys who are a little bit more unlocked on the offensive end.
It kind of reminds me of the 2021 Clippers where they lost Kawhi and everyone was like, the season's over, but Paul George kind of rallied around with these other guys like Terrence Mann, and they ended up beating the Utah Jazz and then going to the conference finals.
And you get these great games from Terrence Mann. And you get these great games from Derek White and Pritchard and Sam Hauser and
Luke Cornett.
Cornett dominated the game yesterday because what's happening is these guys are now getting a bigger plate. So you're going to see guys eat more, guys who are capable. So this is still going to be a very hard-fought series. I have no doubt in my mind that Mazzulla is in that locker room right now talking to the Celtics players like, hey, listen, man, we still have more than enough. This team is still better than that Knicks team. We're the best team in the league for a reason because we're the best team in the league in the NBA. We have depth. We have everything. Obviously, they're not the same team without JT. We know this, and I have the Knicks closing them out in Game 6. But my God, you drop that game, and the panic button gets hit.
Austin, this game for the Knicks is either going to be a celebration into the conference finals for the first time in a long time. And, it would just be amazing for the city of New York. Or if they lose that game, like the difference of a winner or a loss in this game, there's so much riding on it. If they lose that game, it's like, you don't want to go to Boston Game 7. I don't care who's on the court. Like, you just don't want to.
No, you don't want to have to do that.
And you don't even know. I don't even know who you would pick for that game. Right? Like,
and again, we just talked about how much can change. One play, one guy goes down. If you're in New York, you want to end this now. Not to mention the team that you're playing is chilling. All right? Indiana's just sitting back, relaxing. People are like, well, they go against them and get, for maybe the first 2 quarters of the game. But in retrospect, like in overall totality, like you got a team literally getting days with their legs, just like resting right now. These are much needed days. Imagine if you gave Brunson like 4 days off, just like the ice and heal and massage and get right. It'd be a huge difference. You're about to go in a fast-paced series versus the Knicks that you know is going to be a hard-fought series, and you got to close out these Celtics. You don't want to mess around. You don't want this is a must-win for them. You don't want to go to 7 because anything can happen, and then you're already risking another chance of an injury before possibly going into the next series. Not to mention just another game overall on Brunson's legs. And I say Brunson because this dude is carrying them. In the fourth quarter, they just give him the ball, and that little dude, he just carries them. So it's a must win. It's a must win for New York. I mean, I'm not saying anything that none of us don't know already. All right. They have to close out this game, and it's not going to be easy. In some ways, the Boston's offense has been unlocked. Again, I think they're better with Tatum. No shit. But there are ways, and in some ways, with Tatum not out there, it's a little bit more freedom for some of these guys, a little bit more spacing. Ball's kind of popping around. I don't know if you noticed, but the guys are just coming off, swing, three. I mean, it's just popping right now.
Yeah, like if I didn't tell you anything, I just looked on paper at the Celtics team without Tatum right now, and some of those guys in the Knicks team right now. If it was a regular season game and Tatum was out, you'd be like, I don't know who's going to win.
Sometimes with one star, it can be a little bit cleaner than having two.
Define roles, probably.
Because now, with two, you got a bunch of, especially if you have two stars with a bunch of talented role players, you got guys who kind of want the ball, but know they're not going to get it as much. And you got to wait for these two to kind of duke it out and do their thing. And then you have to find your spots. When there's just one guy out there, you're like, shit, I'm getting that shit tonight. It's different. When we would play with Russ and James, it was a lot sometimes. If it was just one of them, we knew he was getting it. It's just different.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, Boston ain't some team you can just count out. This is going to be a bar fight. So we'll see what happens. I like the Final Four and what it looks like it's going to be. Everyone else is like, this is a weird fight. I have Shea, the best team in the record, best record in the NBA, OKC, versus Anthony Edwards.
Who were in the conference finals last year. So this isn't like some Cinderella team,
no.
Even though they're this like...
We got a team that was supposed to be there last year versus a team that was there last year. So West is on par. There we go. On the East, we have the rekindleship of a huge past Eastern Conference rivalry. I can only imagine like Reggie Miller calling one of these games. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
You got the Pacers versus the Knicks. Pacers are a high, fast, pace-playing offensive team. Their playoffs, regardless of what you want to talk about, they don't have a player that's like fun to watch. Like Halliburton's not fun to watch. He doesn't have that bop in his game, but he's a very effective, good player, and you can't deny that. Their series are always fun. If you watch, their games are always close usually. Something's wild's always happening. They're physical, they're chippy. Matherin's always doing something inappropriate. They just have like, they have that makeup of a team going against the Knicks in the guard. That's going to be box office as well.
The nostalgia is really there. I know you tweeted something about NBC nostalgia coming back. This will usher it in.
With the nostalgia there of the past, former series, I can't wait for Halliburton to hit a three and like do this. Something like, it's all there.
I think the Pacers should do what the Knicks do. Bring back all the old players. Give me the Dale Davis, Antonio Davis, Derek McKee. I want Mark Jack. I want them all.
Don't name the Pacers, not name Rick Schmidt.
Rick Schmidt.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's throw the guys in there. I agree. I get it. And I think we'd have a great Final Four. I understand like people want LeBron and the Lakers, Steph. Like, bro, stop. Their time is done. That is cooked for now. Next year, this summer, new additions might pose a new thing. But for now, let that go. Right now, we have a new future ahead of us. Look who's in front of us right now. Halliburton, Pacers, Brunson and this young team, Knicks, Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves, Shea, and OKC.
It's a good Final Four.